Right now, somewhere in the back of your mind, a conversation from earlier today is still playing. Maybe something you said, maybe something someone else said, and you're still trying to figure out what they meant by it. You're not even doing it on purpose. It's just running quietly in the background, like a tab you forgot to close. Here's something most people don't realize. Not all overthinking is the same. There are actually 3 distinct types, and most people only recognize themselves in one of them. But the type that does the most damage is usually the one nobody talks about. By the end of this video, you'll be able to identify exactly which type of overthinker you are, and more importantly, why the advice that works for one type can actually make another type worse. This isn't another video telling you to just stop thinking so much. This is about understanding the specific shape your mind takes when it loops. Because once you see the shape, you can finally do something about it. There are 3 types. The first one is the one most people assume describes them. The second one is the one that quietly burns people out without them ever realizing why. And the third type, the one we'll get to last, is the one that isolates people the most, and it's almost never discussed in psychology content. Let's start with the one you probably think you are. This is the overthinker who struggles with choices, not big, life-altering choices, necessarily, but everyday ones. What to order, what to wear, whether to send the email now or wait until tomorrow. From the outside, it looks like indecisiveness. From the inside, it feels like responsibility, like you're the only one taking the decision seriously enough to consider every angle. Here's a moment you'll recognize. You're standing in front of the fridge at 11 at night. You're not hungry, not really, but you open it anyway, stare at the options, close it, open it again 2 minutes later, and somehow this becomes the 4th time tonight. You've done this exact thing, no closer to deciding anything. Psychologists studying decision-making have found something that sounds almost backwards. More deliberation past a certain point doesn't lead to better decisions. It leads to worse ones. Not because you're not smart enough, but because the part of your brain responsible for careful analysis was never designed to run constantly. It gets tired, and a tired analytical brain doesn't become more careful. It becomes more likely to default to whatever feels safest, which is usually no decision at all. The decision looper isn't lacking discipline. They're running their most expensive mental process on problems that don't require it and saving nothing for the moments that actually do. This is the overthinker whose loops are almost entirely about other people, specifically about how other people perceive them. If you've ever sent a text, then immediately reread it, then wondered if okay sounded too cold, then considered adding an exclamation mark, then worried the exclamation mark seemed forced, then opened the chat again 10 minutes later just to check if they've seen it yet, you already know this type intimately. The social replayer runs constant simulations. What did that pause in the conversation mean? Did that joke land wrong? Was that person being short with me? Or am I imagining it? They draft and redraft messages, not because the wording is hard, but because they're trying to account for every possible way it could be received. Here's the part that makes this type so exhausting. This isn't a flaw in empathy. It's actually empathy working overtime without an off switch. The social replayer is often the person who reassures everyone else, who tells their friends they're not a burden, who talks people down from spirals, and then lies awake at night, convincing themselves that they are the burden, using none of the compassion they just gave away for free. Same mind, completely different rules depending on who it's pointed at. This is the type that gets talked about the least, and it's arguably the most isolating of the 3. The meaning seeker doesn't just replay conversations or struggle with decisions. They take ordinary moments and start asking what they mean. Why did that interaction feel off? What does it say about this friendship that we've drifted? What does it mean about me that I reacted that way? On the surface, this looks like depth, and in some ways, it is. The meaning seeker often notices things other people miss entirely: the tension under a conversation, the sadness behind someone's joke, the pattern repeating itself in their own relationships. But here's where it becomes dangerous, because everything starts to feel like it's carrying a message. The meaning seeker can never just experience something. A quiet evening alone isn't just quiet. It becomes evidence of something. A friend being distracted isn't just a busy day. It becomes a clue to decode. This is the type that ends up feeling most alone, not because they lack people around them, but because they can't stop analyzing the people around them long enough to actually be present with them. They're standing one step outside of their own life, narrating it instead of living it. And here's the part that makes this type so easy to miss. From the outside, it looks like wisdom. People come to the meaning seeker for advice, for perspective, for help making sense of things. Nobody realizes that the same mind offering all that clarity to others has never once turned that clarity inward with any kindness. Here's why this matters. If you're a decision looper, advice like, just sit with your feelings, won't help much. Because your problem isn't emotional avoidance. It's an overworked analytical process that needs boundaries, not more reflection. If you're a social replayer, advice like, just think it through logically, can actually make things worse, because logic isn't the missing piece. The missing piece is realizing the simulation you're running about someone else's judgment is almost always more detailed and more critical than anything that person is actually thinking. And if you're a meaning seeker, the advice that helps most isn't about thinking less. It's about practicing experiencing something without immediately needing to know what it means, letting a moment just be a moment. Most people are actually a blend, with one type dominant, but the meaning seeker pattern, when it's the dominant one, tends to be the most overlooked because it's so often praised as insight rather than recognized as exhaustion. 3 types: the decision looper, stuck choosing; the social replayer, stuck analyzing how others see them; the meaning seeker, stuck searching for what everything means. Different shapes, same underlying engine, a mind that learned, somewhere along the way, that thinking harder was the only way to stay safe. If you recognize yourself in one of these, especially the third one, drop it in the comments, just the type 1, 2, or 3. It helps to know which one resonates most, and it might help someone else reading the comments recognize themselves too. There's one more layer to the meaning seeker we haven't touched on yet. What happens when this pattern starts shaping not just how someone sees the world, but who they choose to let into it? That's worth its own conversation, and we'll get into it soon. Thank you for watching. If this video brought you value, please consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a comment with your thoughts below. We look forward to seeing you in the next video.